Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Islamic Practical Meditation. I am dedicating this video for the scientist and electric engineer Dan Winter for his words on Sufi science. The link for the whole video is in the description if you have a scientific mind and you want to see the whole video. Let's start.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to FractalU.com. I'm Dan Winter, FractalField.com, FractalU.com, and it is here Sunday, May 5, and we have an amazing conversation tonight about the Sufis and the geometry of attention and the Sufi dance and the last plea about the physics of soul. Okay, back to tonight's lecture. So tonight, the lecture starts with a dedication to the Sufis. Tonight's lecture starts with my favorite Gurdjieff physics. Gurdjieff Sufi physics is my favorite kind of physics, actually. You know that I was taught by at Claymont.org by Rashad Field, famously the Sufi master of the last barrier, and who taught in our friend Georg Sufi community in Spain for many years, and also by Saul Bernardowski, founder of the Sufi Healing Order in the States from Virginia. And we had Sufi dance conferences at my farm for many years in Western New York. And the part of that story that relates to how tonight's lecture starts is when the Sufi master is instructing the student how to begin to prepare for the Sufi dervish turn. Now you remember that, the announcement for tonight's lecture was, why does attention track center of gravity? That's the intro concept that we wish to understand viscerally, as it were. So here's the point, in terms of physics, that what PlanckFire.com has, in my view, actually proved by equation that charge collapse is the cause of gravity and charge collapse is the cause of consciousness. Well, which is to say, literally the cause of attention. So, and what we're saying very specifically is you take that cascade golden ratio harmonics tuned exactly to Planck at the throat of the vortex, that Planck length and time, that when the vortex climaxes by tuning to Planck, there is a drain hole at the Planck length and time at the tip of that vortex where the pine cones kiss noses, as it were. And specifically, what we are saying, a radical new physics, is the reason gravity exists and the reason consciousness and attention exist is because at that Planck threshold, there's a way out through the speed of light. In other words, simply that there's a way out for charge at the center of the vortex. Here's Einstein scratching his head, never figuring out why objects fall to the ground, because he knows that there has to be infinite charge collapse, and he knows that the charge has to go somewhere after it collapses. And that's what he couldn't figure out, and therefore he never could tell you why an object falls to the ground. So once you know where the charge goes at the climax of the vortex, which is to say, opening the spigot at the bottom of the vortex enables that vortex to get centripetal. Otherwise, no centripetal force. And centripetal force defines gravity and defines consciousness. That the more consciousness you have, literally, the more implosive squeeze there is in your aura. You can measure, electrically measure, how conscious you are, literally, by how much your attention causes charge to compress. That's Bill Tiller. So, why is this profound? Because remember, at the throat of that vortex, the nozzle of the pine cone, the Planck dimension, there is permission only there to embed and distribute into the longitudinal EMF array. Remember, longitudinal EMF array defines gravity waves, Tom Bearden, and longitudinal EMF array, as our slideshow again tonight will document, defines the collective unconscious, dreaming track, ancestor memory, clairvoyance. You want to see ancestors? You got to embed in that same longitudinal array. So that's why kids who are learning to see without their eyes, they do that implosion in their brainwave. Not only are they seeing without their eyes, then they get clairvoyant. Why? Because they're prehending, they're embedding in the longitudinal array. And that is the only physics of action at a distance and the only physics of actual telepathy, the nodes of that array, as Korotkov and Kozyrev proved. So, again, why is it profound that consciousness and gravity are caused by the same thing, namely a tornado that creates a drain hole through the speed of light at the center, the perfect pinhole, as it were. That means, and now I'm getting back to my Sufi teacher, that means if you track the center of gravity, and my Sufi teacher said specifically, there you are, you're a little embarrassed because you know that if you start the dervish turn as a Sufi and you should happen to get dizzy, then your Sufi master knows that you did not have pure intention. Oops, that could be embarrassing. So you want to prepare yourself kind of good for starting your Sufi dervish turn. So the Sufi master says, track your center of gravity from the center of your heart and follow it down like a vortex to the center of the earth. And then follow the center of that vortex with your attention from the center of the earth to the heart of the sun. Now, later in this conversation, we're going to show the electrical geometry, 7-spin, 5-spin plasma, called Anu, the exact electrical plasma spin geometry of the heart of the sun, the heart muscle, layers of the human, and the exact geometry seen at the heart of hydrogen by clairvoyance, called Anu. Anywho, tracking the center of gravity with your attention helps you to inhabit the still point at the center of the vortex. I repeat, inhabit the still point at the center of the vortex. What does that mean? Now, this is where, if I'm good, I get out the slides. Here we go. I'm trying this now. Am I good? Okay, tours talk, moment. Full sequence. Okay, are you seeing my slide now, guys? In order to understand, yes. In order to understand the dance, one must be still. And in order to truly understand stillness, one must dance. Rumi. Now, remember think about Daniel Brinkley, he died, 2 or 3 times inside lightning bolts and came back a superconductor, wrote books about it. So how did he inhabit the center of that lightning bolt without getting dizzy? Well, keeping your attention at the center is where the principle of all spin inhabits. Now, there's a magazine article about this ancient time travel technology, the astonishing wormhole dance of dervish sages, which is, here's a picture of the article here. Isn't this cool? So here's the Sufi spinning, and physicists have analyzed the dervish turn and discovered a Schwarzschild implosion geometry and a time wormhole and deep and profound lessons in physics from the Sufi dance. Remember, this is the same Sufi that said, if you can make the perfect echo, you are a saint. And what is the electric field that survives death? It's literally discovering how to make an echo, literally. And how do you find the sacred space electrically in a room? Well, you start by looking for the center of the echo, where recursive implosion is sustainable. So to find the center of the echo, I mean the Sufi dance, I mean the dervish turn, is a profound physics that the theory here is that the reason being able to inhabit the center of the spin with no distraction means that you're able to inhabit pure principle. You know that if you do not have pure intention, you cannot focus. In other words, if someone has shifty eyes, it tells you this used car salesman is not to be trusted. It's good physics. So the ability to focus is literally proof of being a shareable wave. Ain't that cool? So the idea is that since the implosive drain hole for charge at the center of attention, the center of gravity, the center of the dervish turn, the center of the lightning called kundalini, this is the center point which creates a distribution into the array. An ability to inhabit that array means you can lucid dream and take memory through death. So notice that the soul is specifically, we have to say that we're going to say it and then say it and say that then we said it. The soul is created when the recursive squeezing of DNA during bliss, when the implosion of glands during bliss and coherent emotion, when the implosion of inhabiting sacred space, when that centripetal compression of electric fields, bliss in DNA, bliss in the glands, bliss in sacred space, that enacts recursive squeezing, braiding in the DNA, and then creates this perfect vortex. The side view of which is a caduceus. It's literally a golden spiral on the perfect cone. And then the transverse EMF up and down is converted into coherent longitudinal EMF out the center of that vortex. And that coherent longitudinal EMF array is the physics that we are going to prove tonight is what takes you into lucid dream and takes you through death, is coherence into that longitudinal array, literally the physics of soul. What Gurdjieff called, well, if you're not making a Kesjan body today, you're not going to get immortal. He called it the Kesjan body. What the Tibetans called the rainbow light body, and what the Egyptians called the Ba from the Ka. Gurdjieff was talking about you make this refined stuff. He said, you're making refined stuff, which builds the body of the soul. Well, I was there, and I was an electrical engineering student, and I sure as hell wanted to know what that stuff was. Gurdjieff called Kesjan body, which makes you immortal. I was damn curious when I was in the Gurdjieff school at claymont.org, and you know what? I now know exactly what it is. And we now know how to tell kids how to make the stuff that you can take through death and have a soul. And inhabiting metal buildings with electrosmog and fractionated food and all this crap is the opposite and could cost you your soul. It's real. Okay, so this is where I started. So this was, now you're seeing in order to understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Me?
Yes. So this is where we started, that in order to understand the dance must be still. And this was the magazine article about the astonishing wormhole. And this was the dervish turn. I'm sorry I got the slides screwed up there, guys. Oh dear.
Thank you, Ralph, for reminding that.
Yeah. See, it gives you two different options in screen share. I didn't do it right. I'm sorry. So this is the idea that when that implosive squeezing happens in glands and DNA, it spits out the longitudinal coherence that we call a soul. Those are the slides we missed. So then the physics of tornadoes here we're talking about, that the still point at the center is the center of low pressure because of that pent symmetry, and the symmetry at the center is literally a pentagram, you see? So this was an indication of the principle behind tornado steering, the pent implosive charge symmetry. And this is what we were just discussing then, that magnetic lines are cut unwisely by construction, excess metal, not paying respect to the elemental forces. So all the things that prevent living plasma from communicating are the reason tornadoes are not being steered. This is the bad news. And so you've all seen this, that if you've watched a shaman steering a tornado, you would actually see that bioplasmic streamers from the belly of the shaman embed in the tornado as the shaman begins steering that tornado. And the shaman says, I'm eating the hoocha. The shaman's literally feeling the pain of the tornado. And that then it enables this embedding perfected slip knot operation in the plasma belly of the shaman, which looks like the Anu, which is the 7 spins, 5 spins we're just talking about. So that's the plasma geometry of human heart muscle, heart of hydrogen, heart of the sun. 7 spins outside, 5 spins inside. That's what's the review. So we're now at slide number 139, and we're to go to 153. So it's 7 spins, 5 spins, 7 spins, 5 spins, 7 spins is the tetracube, 5 spins is the dodeca. Okay, so setting the context here that attention happens when you get a center of gravity electrically. This means literally that if you took off your thick rubber sneakers and stood barefoot on the ground, or something, stones or thin natural leather shoes, and got grounded, at that moment you should notice a sharpening of attention, because the plasma vortex got a center of gravity. You see that? So that ability to make gravity and the ability to make attention both require the same thing, the centripetal force of perfect grounding. Literally a way out for charge through center, making it centripetal.